Video games are a truly unique medium. Being able to control your experience and become enthralled with characters and entire worlds gives it the edge over traditional media like TV shows and movies. Some games have been criticized for lacking gameplay in order to tell a more meaningful story. This isn't always the case, as there are examples of some that mix the two well, but for a smaller studio it sometimes boils down to focusing on one or the other. There is no doubt that the experience is the primary focus of an upcoming game that uses religious themes to capture its target audience, but should we praise it or condemn it?
The heroine of this story, if it were up to her, would have preferred to stay within its walls. However, destiny had something different in store for her.
Developed by Odd Meter and published by 11-Bit Studios, Indika is a story-driven experience set in an alternative 19th century Russia where religious visions clash with harsh reality. The cold and dreary backdrop sets the player up for an emotional roller coaster as the story follows a nun as she sets on a journey of self-discovery with the most unusual companion by her side, the devil himself.
Well, she's a nun. A rather plain one, if you ask me.
My first impressions of playing the demo were full of awe. I think the setting was great, and having the demo take place somewhere after the beginning of the game was a great idea, as there were puzzle pieces that needed to be put together to understand the relationship between Indika and Ilya. This relationship is full of irony, as Ilya is a convict who speaks with God, and Indika is a nun who speaks with the devil. The odd couple dynamic is done well, and you can feel the questioning of faith that will undoubtedly be integral to the plot. The camera angles used and the environmental surroundings generate and enhance an eerie feeling and an uneasy atmosphere, although some of the puzzles can break immersion, as I did find myself getting stuck a few times with no real idea of what to do. The chase sequences shown in the demo are also a bit of a point of contention, as there is a path for you to take, but sometimes the environment can be misleading. As you can see in this cutscene and start of sequence, I should have enough time to slip by these moving parts, however when I get to the intersection, a blocker pops up in the way. It does a good job of creating tension and forcing the player to scramble trying to figure out the actual solution, but restarting the same chase sequence over and over kinda put me off of it, and it kinda makes me feel like there should have been another way. Another example would be when you reach the village, you are shown a camera shot from inside the house, which leads you to explore that way. However, just a short while later, a similar camera shot is used, but after spending a minute trying to find my way, I realized that all it was doing was misleading me, which felt a little disappointing. I felt like maybe if Ilya was able to give some slight hints, it might help lessen the frustration that came with just not knowing what to do. As awkward as this is to say, I feel like all those concerns were washed away when I was able to experience interacting with the devil.
What about stealing? Pocketing a ruble, for example. Is that worse?
Worse.
How much worse?
This is nonsense. You can't compare such things.
Why not? The priest imposes a different penance for different sins, and since you know for sure which is better or worse, there has to be a way of measuring.
The taunts and jests were unsettling, and having him use logic to tear down Indika's faith was a staggering experience. I was not ready for the puzzle mechanic that came from having to switch between praying and listening to the devil's ranting, and even though the puzzle was simple, the experience is one that I know I will never forget.
You don't even have anything to say. The abbess knows you inside out, so everything turned out just as written.
Indika presents itself as experience first and gameplay second style of game, and if you're willing to see past some of the small faults in the game, I believe that it will show you a fantastic journey full of emotion and self-reflection. The gripes that I have may sound like a lot, and there are some technical hiccups, but I felt like I was a little more critical because I could see how much potential this game has to be a masterpiece. One aspect I have glossed over is the voice acting. It is such a breath of fresh air to hear such quality voice acting coming from an indie game, and if it wasn't up to par, then I can guarantee you that Indika would not have been an enjoyable experience, as without a huge focus on gameplay, the characters are what the player has to fall back on in order to find the game enthralling. I also glossed over the music and the HUD of the game, as I can't quite figure out if it fits the style of the game or not, and because of that, I will say that neither really broke my immersion, but they both just stood out for what I would probably call interesting choices for the setting. Indika is slated for a release in Q2 of this year, but the demo is still up, so I highly recommend giving it a shot and keeping your eye on it when it releases. But that'll be it for this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, be kind to one another.
Poor girl. Of all the boring places, why do you want to go to heaven?
A huge shout out goes out to my new patron supporter Kamikolo, alongside Relativity and Naughty Dog is King, and all of my subscribers on YouTube. I'm really starting to feel some traction with the channel, and I hope to bring more fun and engaging content to you, so please stick around and let me know what you'd like to see in the future.